Hi there, it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder here with the jankiest of jank brews today, and a bit of a challenge to our community to see if we can break the Death Oasis in Standard. So this card, of course, gets more interesting in Pioneer and in Modern with cards like Heartless Summoning and Workshop's Assistant and Mire Retriever that can easily go infinite with Death Oasis. However, I thought I'd try to make a deck that can just be as degenerate as possible and go infinite in Standard, and I actually have come up with a jank of jank combo. So again, this challenge is out to all of my fans, all of my supporters to try and break the Death Oasis. So maybe we'll give some sort of prize. I'll have the details soon and do a whole video on that. But I've been messing around with this card because it was one of my top 10 cards that I wanted to brew with. I actually do have a more legit deck that just uses Death Oasis to really grind out your opponents. However, this one was a pretty fun thought experiment to find an infinite combo in Standard, and I have found one. Now hold on to your bootstraps. This is definitely a jank combo. It's going to take like 5-6 cards to make this work. So first of all, Death Oasis reads, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a creature card with lesser converted mana cost than the creature that died from your graveyard to your hand. Then you can sacrifice Death Oasis and you gain life equal to that to the greatest converted mana cost among creatures you control. Kind of a bad ability there. I kind of wish it would have just said sacrifice a creature and gain life equal to its toughness, and then have the sacrifice outlet on the enchantment. But they wanted us to do a little bit more work with Death Oasis. Therefore, you have to have sack outlets in other ways. So first of all, the first thing you need to do is with Death Oasis is we are going to be recycling 2 artifacts. And to get those artifacts to be able to be cast for free, we need Ugin the Ineffable. So Ugin states colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. That's all we care about it for. The +1, -3, who cares? The other part we need is Spark Double. So Spark Double needs to copy Ugin the Ineffable. The easiest way to do this is something through like Command the Dreadhorde. So we can go like a really high self-mill strategy, try to get these 2 in the graveyard, and then go for the Command the Dreadhorde, lose 10 life by getting Ugin and Spark Double back onto the battlefield. And from there, if we have Death Oasis on the board, then we can go infinite with these 2 cards. The first one is Pattern Matcher and the Salvager of Ruin. We also do need to have a sack outlet, and right now the only free sack outlet in the game is Woe Strider. The Salvager of Ruin has a sack outlet on itself, so you can sacrifice Salvager of Ruin to choose a permanent card that was put there from the battlefield this turn to return to your hand. That's what we're going to be targeting Pattern Matcher when it actually dies. So you go Pattern Matcher, comes on into the battlefield, you sacrifice it to bring the Salvager of Ruin back to your hand, you cast the Salvager of Ruin, you sacrifice Salvager of Ruin to its own ability to then target Pattern Matcher, and then that will create a loop. Just loop-de-loop-de-loop-de-loop. Okay? So afterwards, we need a finisher of once that combo is established. So you can do that with a couple of ways. You can just mill yourself completely and then cast Thassa's Oracle. That one might be a little bit of a struggle because then you'd still have to come up with... No, I guess you wouldn't have to come up with the blue mana because you could actually get that back from Salvager of Ruin. So there's the other part of the combo is eventually with Salvager of Ruin, you get back Thassa's Oracle, and then you would just win the game when you scry and have no cards left in your library. The other way you could do it is through Cruel Celebrant. And I don't know which one would be better. Probably this one because it would allow you to gain life. I guess Thassa's Oracle would allow you to scry to find your combo pieces, but I'm not sure which one would be better. They're both pretty jank. And the other cards that I thought would be to be Trail of Crumbs to really find the right pieces. It doesn't really find your Command the Dreadhorde, but it does find your Death Oasis. Possibly there's just a better way to do that with things like Thirst for Meaning, or if you go heavier on the blue, or you could just go Discovery to Dispersal to really dig for the cards that you need, because everything just needs to be in the graveyard except for Death Oasis and Command the Dreadhorde. I thought if we went the Trail of Crumbs route, you could go Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven just to kind of grind out and try to dig for those. But again, it might be a better route just to go maybe Teferis to stall the game and some board wipes to help stall the game, and eventually you find all the cards in the graveyard, and then you can go through your deck. I'm not even sure if Woe Strider absolutely needs to be in this at this point. If you just have the ability to sacrifice for like the Witch's Ovens would be enough maybe to sacrifice a Pattern Matcher enough ways. Or if you know of a better sack outlet, definitely leave a comment in the comment section below, and that way if there's like another activated ability, I can think of a few activated abilities that you could get some value out of, but they all do cost some sort of activation to then kill the pattern matcher. There's a few of them that you can sacrifice artifacts in standard right now. There's a few of them you can just sacrifice permanents, but they do have an activation cost. So that is about as jank as it comes. My goal is to actually get a recording where we can actually get this combo off. It's probably going to take a lot of games, a lot of free wins to people, but we are going to try to do it. So yeah, I don't know which way it will go. I'm probably leaning towards more of the control route with Thassa's Oracle, and then going the route of just control, hit Death's Oasis, finally run into a Command the Dreadhorde, and then Command the Dreadhorde back, Spark Double and Ugin, and then hopefully have the other cards in the graveyard, and then just win the game. The thing about the Witch's Oven Cauldron Familiar is it ends up being a really good outlet to draw or to self-mill. You end up self-milling if you put like another 0 drop in here, like the Stonecoil Serpent with Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven. That's milling 4 per turn with those sort of activations, and you're also gaining 2 life per turn. So maybe we'll go that route and the Cruel Celebrant route, because you can just win some games by that kind of grindy. Something like a Midnight Reaper in here too could draw you a bunch of cards and stabilize that way to then try to find everything you need. I don't know if that's the route to go. I don't know if having some other way to pitch cards out of your hand, if you have Ugin and the Spark Double in your hand, other than Spark Double could be a pretty decent card just to copy onto a card at this point. And I wonder if there's like Spark Double and Salvager Ruin, does that go infinite by itself if you copy a Salvager and then sack it and then target? You'd have to have another Spark Double in the no, because Ugin wouldn't be able to reduce the blue part of it. So yeah, there are some little nuances here though for sure that you can find some plays that might make sense to use the Spark Double to copy other stuff. But yeah, this is going to be fun to find the right tuning for this to try to make this work. So before I let you go though, I am going to show the deck that I have been working on with the Oasis, and this is a self-mill strategy that is going to try to find very similar card pieces to where eventually you just grind out your opponent with enough damage done through the Cauldron Familiars and the Stonecoil Serpents and the Cruel Celebrants. I'm actually thinking that this deck wants to have some higher drops in here, or some other converted mana costs that do similar things as Cruel Celebrant, because what ends up happening is you need to have targets that these ones can find to then cast. And it gets a little bit awkward, and you'll have to watch some gameplay with what I'm talking about. I've milled myself a couple of times before I could actually dish off lethal against opponents that were just killing creatures over and over, and it took me a while to establish. I mean, you'd have the win on board, but then I'd have milled myself at that point. So there's some fun stuff you can do with Luminous Broodmoth, which will bring back the cards. So if you have a Luminous Broodmoth and a Woe Strider out, you can sacrifice some creatures and then get them back and get multiple activations, and then eventually get all the cards you need to then dish off enough damage by recycling everything. So this is the best list I've been able to come up with so far, as a Cauldron Familiar and Gilded Goose with the Trail of Crumbs. This is super important because you need to find Death's Oasis, and this little combo is very good at doing so with Cauldron Familiar, Gilded Goose, Trail of Crumbs, Witch's Oven type stuff to really grind out and find what you need. Some of the other cards that are really good in this deck is the Priest of the Forgotten Gods, by sacrificing 2 creatures to forcing your opponents to sacrifice a creature, drawing a card and adding the mana. This can also ramp you to get some of the pieces you need. And a card like Plaguecrafter has been very interesting with Death's Oasis, where you cast Plaguecrafter, you let it sack itself, and then you can get back a 2-drop. And that's been pretty good in this deck. So I have won some games with this deck. It still is kind of awkward in the meta at the moment, with a lot of graveyard hate and people that are really sideboarded or actually in the main, they're prepared for Witch's Oven decks and prepared for Lurrus. But nonetheless, I think this is it's kind of a fun, interesting deck that's different than what's going around in the meta at the moment. So there you have it. There's kind of my list here. I'll have the link in the description below, or the list in the description below, that you can copy pasta and give it a try on Arena and see if you would have any suggestions for this deck. So that's my challenge, Death Oasis in Standard. See what you can come up with. There are other cards like going into adding blue to the deck with like Euro that seemed pretty interesting to be casting Euro, and then you get a free card back from your graveyard. That seems pretty interesting, but we'll have to see what all the community can come up with this Oasis. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be looking forward to seeing those creations, and let me know what you think of the jank of all jank. And if you can actually screenshot or record with that combo with the Spark Double Ugin, maybe you can beat me to it. Let me know. This has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.